Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Amazi, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode. At Porn Reboot, we believe that compulsive sexual behavior needs to be tackled in a holistic way. We address not just your habits, but any traumatic events that have impacted you in your life. We also address co-occurring disorders, addictions, and habits, as well as limiting beliefs. So in order to best serve our clients, we've curated and brought together some of the best professionals in their fields to coach and support you through your reboot journey. In certain episodes, we'll be sharing some excerpts from our coaches' sessions, and I hope that you find these helpful.
So, hey everyone, I have Marco here. He's completed a year in the implementation program, and he's willing to share his experience and wins that he went through during the time. So, brother, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and actually, how did you find out about the Porn Reboot program?
Going towards 40, I had lived a life with a lot of academic and career achievements, but also a lot of personal difficulties, which made me resolve to the reason why I was in the program. But then actually one day, so at a given moment, I figured out this isn't healthy anymore, what you're doing. Maybe you have a problem. And then I started looking into, are there any solutions that between thinking that and taking action, there was a lot of time involved in between. But then there was actually the point where I had to come clean. We made the agreement at home to have financial transparency, and then the credit card statements came up. So yeah, that was a little bit of a shocker, but that was the point. I took action. Like most of my brothers in this program, there was another 12-step group before this. But then on a given moment, I stumbled on YouTube on JK and the side of elevated recovery. And I think I bought quite fast 30-day fast start, or how does it go? And that was also how I found the podcast. And that podcast became quite a regular thing to listen to. And then at a given moment, with the 12 steps, that wasn't working for me. I questioned a lot of things. So yeah, I question a lot of things, but in general, the sharing parts was okay, but there was no concrete action steps. So you start looking further, and then I reflected. I said, but hey, I'm listening to that guy with his big mouth from the stage. Let's see what he has. And at a given moment, because it was really a struggle, I reached out, sent a mail from, look guys, I don't know how to solve this. Please help me.
Yeah.
And then actually, it came quite fast. There was a response. So we had some interview calls, and I think within a month, actually everything was arranged and I joined the program.
Nice, brother. It could be, thank you for sharing, because of the 12 steps. I get it. Like, it's not don't get me wrong. I don't have anything against them. It's just like, it's not what you needed, right? Or what we needed at the time, specifically to end this behavior. So I'm sure it works for other people, but it does teach you to share, like you mentioned. And so thank you for sharing, brother. And coming into the program, what was your first impression of that? Like, coming into a world where it's like, we're here to end specifically a sexual compulsive behavior.
There was some initial anxiety, a bit of fear, because you don't know what kind of group you will enter. But actually what surprised me was that it quickly became clear that it was a holistic approach. So it's not only the behavior. I think this is one of the mantras of the program. It's not porn, which is the problem. It's something else. But also your social life, financial life, relationship, body and health, mental well-being, everything is actually targeted. And that makes it quite effective because it's all linked together. And yeah, there are other programs out there who aren't focused on that. And that makes it enormous difference. From the moment I saw that, I just had the feeling, okay, dive into it. You want to end this, you do what you need to do.
Nice, bro. So this is it. I'm going to make it happen. And that's a good mindset. So coming in, what was something that worked for you? What was like, whoa, this actually helped me understand not only understand my behavior, but also see the progress that I wanted?
For me, the big eye opener was already successfully implementing the kind of morning routine, but the feelings exercise.
Mm.
And that was a tough one. In that sense, in the beginning, you really don't know, what do I need to write down here? How am I feeling? It's also in the beginning, it's always the same 3 to 5 emotions, and afterwards it gets bigger, it gets bigger, it gets bigger, and at the end you can actually name and really pinpoint. Okay, now I'm happy, or now I'm in a curious mode. Now I'm more this mode. Now I'm just sad because it reminds me of something sad that happened in the past, and that took actually away a lot of layers of what I always called anger. And the moment that wall came down, that was the first big wave of relief. Then also, there are specific tools, exercises like the book Breaking the Cycle. That's gold. That's really gold if you do the exercises written in the book. I think the key to success in this program is also being bluntly honest with yourself. What happened? What did I do? You find out the why, but it's mostly just acknowledging, okay, this has happened, this has caused this effects to loved ones, family, people close to you. So that also triggers a lot of emotional loads, but in the end, it frees a lot, and it makes you a lot lighter.
Wow. Yeah, you definitely become more conscious of what you repressed, right? With the behavior that we like to do here when we first join. And having that awareness is key, brother. So I do appreciate you sharing. And that vulnerability part, right? Like, whoa, I take full responsibility and accountability with things that people that I've hurt, maybe not intentionally, but unintentionally, we hurt people in the process. And that could kind of instill more emotions, right? Like, oh, what did I do? And this and that. But also showing compassion, right? Is one of the things we tell you guys, be compassionate towards yourself, be kind, because it could get messy in the beginning, but you can see the other side and know that this behavior is not just my use of pornography anymore. It's more internally like, whoa, I don't know how to cope with anger, you mentioned, right? And that's
True.
an emotion that we kind of demonize because like, oh, angry people are violent, not necessarily, but it could like not used correctly. It could obviously have some consequences, right? But I appreciate you sharing that, brother. So having these tool sets and the ability to now see emotions, how has that impacted your life, and what difference do you see now?
Well, the first months was bumpy roads, but I think the biggest shift came at the moment. I think that was the second time I went through my whole personal history, where I noticed I'm shifting from only blaming other people and actually also reflecting on the fact, okay, I did this. That was probably not the best action to take or the best reaction. I could have approached that differently. I could have responded differently. And once I was on that path, it also became quite easily to start looking for the patterns. Once you notice the patterns, the puzzle becomes very clear.
Nice. So noticing patterns, and when you notice the patterns, how did you bridge the gap to start believing that I could do it this way now?
Well, I know you guys don't like the word white knuckling, but in the beginning you have to force yourself a bit, push yourself, just trying to do it differently. For me personally, in these kinds of change trajectories you go through, that's also the difficult parts. A lot of guys in this program are people pleasers. We all had difficulties to say no. So you start saying no, there is resistance because you say no. In the beginning, it still brings up the old reactions, but you get more acquainted with them, and it gets easier to manage, and you become maybe a much cooler in reactions. And also, sometimes you just have to push through or to be exposed to that what you want to avoid. Because in the end, coping with porn or using anything else to not face your problems, in the end, what you don't want to face is the thing you get in return, and in a much uglier and harder version than you expect.
Wow. Okay, but no, thank you for that, man. That's very powerful, and that gets to show like, hey, it's like a learning process, right? And I agree with like, what do we say here? Or JK at least says, you're becoming an expert at yourself.
True.
And this is all what is revealed to you, learning about you, your patterns, the way you think, the way your belief systems, right? and working with that, because sometimes, hey, we want to get rid of emotions, or for example, guilt. Sometimes we'd be like, okay, what would help me alleviate this guilt? And it could be something like whatever your beliefs are. It could be literally saying, or, doing a good deed that alleviates guilt. And that's okay, right? Because you're working with your brain there. That's what we like to say, work with your brain, not against it. And once you start to find things that work for you, that's where you start to see the progress, brother. And so having this, like, again, experience, how has that impacted like relationships, like how you show up with people?
So my wife tells me I'm much relaxer also in company, but I also noticed that it's much easier for me to start talking to random strangers. Also with my friends, we still joke around. There's also with a few friends, but I have become really selective on who I share stuff with. Then we can really have sincere, deep conversations, and that can be about feelings. If you told me 5 years ago you will talk to one of your male buds about your feelings, I was like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, that is true, right? We have that pride, like, don't you talk about your feelings here. Man up, don't be a little bitch. But that's good, brother. So, hey, that's great, right? You get feedback from other people. I feel like that's a great way to gauge your progress, because sometimes we feel like we're not growing. We're like, oh, I know I'm doing the right things, but our ego is like, nah, right? It downplays our progress. And that's why we tell you guys to write your wins and keep posting, because you could literally check your post from like a year ago to now. And you're like, damn, I'm not nearly as close to that guy I was a year ago to now. Completely different people. But that's good to hear.
True.
And any other wins that you experienced as you navigated through the reboot process, your first year?
Well, I always say this one is a big work in progress, but it gets a lot easier for me to set my boundaries and also to respect them without going into, let's say, berserk mode or reacting way too heavy. Otherwise, then there's the social aspects. And I notice in general, my whole perspective against work, life, social tendencies, friendship, romance, it's completely changed. Call it out loud. Have to admit what I used in the past. It's not good. It's really not a good thing for men. It's not a good thing for society. It's a piece of junk.
Yeah.
And it's junk you find everywhere, unfortunately.
That's a good point, man. No, and brother, I appreciate you sharing. And I like to ask this question towards the end of this call. Like, what if someone's listening to this, right? His brother, or someone's just like, hey, casual listener, they're struggling emotionally, they have pride, but they're open to it. Or maybe they're even in a 12-step and their marriage is like not so great. They're very distant, angry at the world. And they're like contemplating, like, man, I actually want the help, but I need that extra, talk from Marco. What would you tell that person? What would you tell them?
Swallow your pride, and actually with this kind of behavior, that's not so difficult, and just go for it. You will be at sometimes really uncomfortable, but you get at a point where you will be very comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's maybe one of the results of this program, which is transferable to everything in life.
Wow. Okay, brother. Thank you for those words. And I agree how we treat ourselves with respect and just like know that we're worthy of this life without, I guess, in a way, harming ourselves, right? Like with a behavior that's destructive. We know that now, but unconsciously, it's like something that we just do it because, hey, we deserve pain. It's weird. We're addicted to it. Not just with porn, we're addicted to the pain, right? So coming from another place now, and just, that's really good words of wisdom for a brother that's contemplating on joining. But Marco, I appreciate you sharing your experience. Man, I can only hope to see what the second year bring in your own reboot and just life in general. So just keep us posted, brother. And for those of you who are watching, thank you for listening. And just know that you're just as capable of controlling your behavior in a matter of a year. A year goes by quick. So thank you for listening.
I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out of control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot Group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.